You're not lazy. At least, not in the way you've been taught to believe. Because if I could quietly redesign your room, your phone, your desk, the route you take to work, even the order of the apps on your screen, I could change your habits, not by forcing you, not by motivating you, simply by changing what your brain sees before you make a single decision. That's the unsettling part. Most people believe they're in control of their choices. But what if many of those choices were already made long before they felt like choices? Think about tomorrow morning. Before you're fully awake, your hand will probably reach for your phone. Not because you consciously decided to, because you've repeated that movement hundreds, maybe thousands of times. It isn't a decision anymore. It's a program. And here's the frightening truth. The world around you is full of people who understand this. App designers, advertisers, supermarkets, streaming platforms. Every notification, every brightly colored icon, every recommendation, every just one more video. They're all competing for one thing. Not your money. Not at first. Your habits. Because once someone influences what you do automatically, they no longer have to convince you. The habit does the work for them. And that's where most people misunderstand change. They think they're losing a battle against laziness, when in reality, they're fighting an environment that has been training them every single day. So they buy another productivity app, watch another motivational video, promise themselves, tomorrow will be different. But tomorrow usually looks exactly like yesterday. Not because they failed, because the system never changed. And that's a difficult truth to accept, because it means your life isn't shaped by your biggest decisions. It's shaped by the smallest ones, the ones you don't even notice anymore. This isn't really a story about habits. It's a story about invisible systems. And once you see those systems, you'll start noticing them everywhere. David thought he understood all of this. At least, that's what he told himself. His bookshelf was full of self-improvement books. His phone was packed with saved videos, screenshots, notes, morning routines, workout plans, productivity hacks. He wasn't lacking information. If knowledge alone created success, David would have already changed his life. Every Sunday night, he created a new plan. This week is different. Wake up at 5. Go to the gym. Read 20 pages. No social media. Sleep before 11. It looked perfect on paper. Monday morning. The alarm rang. He hit snooze. 5 more minutes. 5 became 20. The workout disappeared. By lunchtime, he promised he'd exercise after work instead. After work, he felt tired. Tomorrow suddenly sounded like a better idea, again. And here's the strange part. Every night, David genuinely believed tomorrow would be different. He wasn't lying to other people. He was lying to himself. Not intentionally. Hope kept resetting the clock. Every failure felt temporary. Until it didn't. Eventually, something much more dangerous happened. He stopped questioning his strategy and started questioning himself. Maybe I'm just not disciplined. Maybe some people have it, and I don't. That's the moment most people lose. Not when they miss a workout. Not when they eat unhealthy. not even when they quit. They lose when they begin building an identity around failure. Because once you believe you're an inconsistent person, your brain starts looking for evidence that you're right. Every missed alarm confirms it. Every unfinished project proves it. Every broken promise becomes another vote for the person you think you are. But David wasn't failing because he lacked willpower. He was succeeding at following the system he'd been living inside. And that's a completely different problem. Because systems don't care about your intentions. They care about your defaults. Imagine a river flowing downhill. You can fight the current for a while. You can swim harder, push harder, try harder. But eventually, the river wins. Not because you're weak, because that's where the current is designed to go. Your daily life works the same way. If your phone is beside your bed, you'll probably check it. If snacks are on the counter, you'll probably eat them. If the couch is easier to reach than your running shoes, you already know which direction your evening will go. Most habits aren't conscious decisions. They are the path of least resistance. David thought his problem was discipline. It wasn't. His environment rewarded distraction and punished effort. Scrolling gave him pleasure immediately. Staying in bed felt comfortable immediately. Skipping one workout had no immediate consequence. But exercise, reading, learning, those rewards arrived weeks later. And the human brain has a weakness. It almost always chooses the reward it can feel now. That's not laziness. That's biology. Every behavior follows the same invisible pattern. First, something catches your attention, then your brain begins wanting it. Next, you act. Finally, you receive a reward. And once that reward repeats enough times, the behavior starts running without permission. Like breathing, like driving a familiar road, like unlocking your phone, without remembering why. David thought he needed more motivation. What he actually needed was a different system. And the breakthrough came from something so small. It almost felt ridiculous. The next morning, David didn't wake up at 5. He didn't run 10 kilometers. He didn't meditate. He didn't transform his life overnight. Instead, he did something so small, most people would laugh at it. After brushing his teeth, he dropped to the floor and did 5 push-ups. That was it. No workout plan. No stopwatch. No motivational music. 5 push-ups. When he stood back up, nothing felt different. He wasn't stronger. He wasn't more disciplined. There was no rush of motivation. If anything, it felt disappointingly ordinary. Part of him even thought, how is this supposed to change anything? That's the trap. We've been taught to believe that big results require big actions. So when something feels small, our brains assume it doesn't matter. But imagine planting an oak tree. The day you place the seed in the ground, nothing changes. A week later, still nothing. You don't stand over the soil shouting, grow faster. Because you understand something about nature that most people forget about themselves. Growth is invisible. Before it becomes obvious, David kept going. The second day, 5 push-ups. The third day, he almost skipped them. And that's the moment that mattered most. Not because he completed a workout, because he proved something to himself. I'm someone who shows up. It wasn't about building muscles anymore. It was about building evidence. Every action, no matter how small, was casting a vote, not for a perfect body, for an identity. Most people think habits create results. James Clear argues something deeper. Habits create people. Every time you read one page, you're practicing being a reader. Every time you cook instead of ordering fast food, you're practicing being someone who takes care of themselves. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, no matter how small, you're rewriting the story you believe about who you are. And that story is far more powerful than motivation. Because motivation comes and goes. Identity stays. By the second week, something strange happened. David stopped asking, "Do I feel like exercising today?" The question itself began disappearing. The habit was becoming automatic. Not because he forced it, because his brain stopped negotiating. This is where most people misunderstand discipline. They imagine successful people winning thousands of internal battles every day. The reality is often the opposite. The fewer decisions you have to make, the easier consistency becomes. Think about brushing your teeth. You probably don't stand in your bathroom every night debating it. You don't watch motivational videos about toothpaste. You don't need a habit tracker. You simply do it. Because repetition eventually removes negotiation. That's what David was building. Not motivation, automation. But then, something happened that almost destroyed everything. One morning, he missed his 5 push-ups. Nothing dramatic. He was running late. He told himself he'd do them later. He didn't. The old voice immediately returned, "See, you're doing it again." If you've ever tried changing your life, you probably know that voice. It doesn't scream. It whispers, "Maybe this isn't for you. Maybe you've always been like this. Maybe nothing's really changed." For years, that voice had won. This time, David answered it differently. The next morning, he did 5 push-ups, not 10. Not 20 to make up for yesterday. Just 5. Because he had finally understood something most people never do. Missing once is an accident. Missing twice is the beginning of a new habit. Success isn't built by never failing. It's built by refusing to let failure become your identity. That's why perfection is such a dangerous goal. Perfection makes every mistake feel like the end. Systems treat mistakes as part of the process. The strongest habits aren't the ones that never break. They are the ones that recover quickly. And while David was learning how small actions reshape identity, someone else was discovering that effort wasn't the real problem at all. Her name was Sarah. She loved the idea of reading. She bought books, watched reviews, saved recommendations. She genuinely believed, "I'm going to read more this year." But every night, the same thing happened. She climbed into bed, reached for her phone, just for a minute. One short video became 5. 5 became 30. Then somehow, it was midnight. The book stayed on the shelf, exactly where it had been. For weeks, she blamed herself. "I have no self-control." But one evening, she noticed something she'd never paid attention to before. The phone was always within reach. The book was across the room. One habit required no effort. The other required getting out of bed. That tiny difference was quietly deciding her evenings. And once she saw it, she couldn't unsee it. Sarah couldn't stop thinking about it. Not the book, not the phone, the distance. One was within reach, the other wasn't. That tiny detail had been deciding her evenings for months. She always believed she was making a choice. Now she wasn't so sure. So that night, she ran a small experiment. Before going to bed, she placed her book right on her pillow, not beside the bed, not on the nightstand, on the pillow. If she wanted to sleep, she had to touch the book first. Then she did something even more interesting. She moved her phone to the other side of the room. Nothing dramatic. The phone still existed. Social media was still there. She didn't delete every app. She simply made the wrong habit slightly harder. The next night, she picked up the book. Read one page, then two. The third night, 5 pages. A week later, she wasn't forcing herself anymore. She was following a different path. And that's when something clicked. Willpower hadn't changed. The path had. Imagine walking through a forest. The first person has to fight through branches, push aside leaves, clear a path. It's exhausting. But after 100 people walk the same route, a trail appears. Eventually, you don't choose the trail. The trail chooses you. Your brain works the same way. It will almost always follow the easiest path available. That's why we keep saying, I don't know why I did that. Most of the time, the answer is surprisingly simple. Because it was easy. The uncomfortable truth is, your environment is making thousands of tiny decisions for you. Every single day. Look around your room. What's on your desk? What's on your home screen? What's next to your bed? What's in your kitchen? None of those things are neutral. They are instructions. A bowl of fruit says one thing. A packet of cookies says another. A guitar sitting in the corner quietly invites practice. A television left on in the background quietly invites distraction. Your surroundings are always speaking. The question is, what are they teaching you? Now think about your phone. Have you ever unlocked it without knowing why? Opened one app, then another, only to realize 20 minutes disappeared. That isn't because you're weak. It's because thousands of engineers have spent years studying one question. How do we make this impossible to ignore? Bright colors, notifications, infinite scrolling, autoplay. Every feature is designed to remove friction. Because the easier an action becomes, the more often you'll repeat it. James Clear didn't invent that principle. He simply showed us that the same psychology controlling our worst habits can also build our best ones. Instead of making distraction effortless, make learning effortless. Instead of putting junk food where you see it first, put water there. Instead of hiding the book on a shelf, leave it where your hands naturally fall. The goal isn't to become stronger than temptation. The goal is to meet temptation less often, because every unnecessary battle drains energy. And the people we call disciplined usually aren't winning more battles. They're fighting fewer of them. That realization changed everything for Sarah. But someone else was trapped by a different illusion. His name was James. James believed success belonged to people who went all in. Every Monday, he became a different person. New workout plan, strict diet, hour-long gym sessions. No excuses. For a few days. It worked. He felt unstoppable. Then life happened. A late meeting. A bad night's sleep. A missed workout. By Friday, the plan had collapsed again. Sound familiar? We've been taught to admire intensity, the dramatic transformation, the overnight success, the new me starts today moment. But intensity has a hidden weakness. It's difficult to repeat. Consistency isn't. So James tried something that felt almost embarrassing. He drove to the gym. With one rule: stay. For 5 minutes, 5. Not 55. It sounded ridiculous. His friends laughed. What's the point of that? But they were asking the wrong question. The point wasn't building muscle. The point was becoming someone who never misses. Some days, he stayed exactly 5 minutes. Other days, he stayed 45. But that wasn't the victory. The victory was showing up. Because showing up became normal. And normal is where habits are born. That's something we rarely talk about. Your future isn't created by your biggest decisions. It's created by your defaults. The things you do. Without thinking. Without celebrating. Without posting about them. Those quiet, almost invisible actions are slowly building the person you'll become. Weeks turned into months. David wasn't forcing himself to exercise anymore. Sarah wasn't forcing herself to read. James wasn't forcing himself to go to the gym. They had stopped relying on motivation. Instead, they had redesigned the systems around them. And systems never get tired. By now, you've probably noticed something strange. David, Sarah, James. They all looked like different people. Different lives. Different struggles. But they were all trapped by the same invisible force. Not laziness. Not a lack of discipline. Systems. That's what Atomic Habits is really about. Not becoming a stronger person, but building a life where strength isn't needed as often. There's one last story. And unlike the others, it doesn't begin with success. It begins with failure. Amina had no problem starting. Monday, she was unstoppable. Tuesday, still going. Wednesday, full of confidence. Then life interrupted. A busy day. A family emergency. An unexpected meeting. One missed habit became 2. 2 became a week. A week became a month. Every time, the same story repeated itself. I've already ruined it. I'll start again next Monday. Maybe you've said that before. Maybe you've waited for the perfect time. The perfect mood. The perfect Monday. But perfect never arrives. One day, Amina made a simple rule. One that seemed almost too small to matter. Never miss twice. Miss one workout, fine. Do one tomorrow. Read 1 page instead of 20. Walk for 5 minutes instead of 30. Shrink the habit. But don't disappear. Because disappearing is how identities are lost. Missing once is life. Missing twice is the beginning of a new pattern. That single rule didn't make her perfect. It made her consistent. And consistency is what perfection was pretending to be all along. Around the same time, another man discovered something even more uncomfortable. His name was Ali. He always had the same excuse. I don't have time. Maybe you've heard someone say it. Maybe you've said it yourself. At first, he believed it. Until one evening, he tracked his entire day. Not to judge himself, just to observe. The results shocked him. 10 minutes here, 15 there. A quick look at social media. One video, another. Checking messages without replying. Opening an app. Forgetting why. Then opening another. None of those moments felt important. But together, they stole hours. That's the danger of tiny habits. They work both ways. The same invisible force that quietly builds your future can quietly steal it. Ollie didn't magically find more time. He removed friction. He logged out of distracting apps, turned off notifications, moved social media off his home screen, placed his notebook on his desk before going to bed, prepared tomorrow. The night before, he wasn't becoming more productive. He was becoming easier to help, because his environment had finally stopped working against him. And maybe that's the biggest misunderstanding about change. People think successful lives are built through extraordinary moments. But look closer. A career is built one day at a time. A relationship, one conversation at a time, trust. One promise kept at a time, health. One meal, one walk, one workout at a time. Your future rarely changes overnight. It changes quietly, while you're busy looking for something dramatic. James Clear understands this better than most. Long before Atomic Habits became one of the world's most influential books on behavior change, he experienced how fragile progress can be. As a teenager, a serious baseball accident left him facing a long recovery. He didn't rebuild his life through one heroic moment. He recovered through small, consistent improvements repeated over time. That experience shaped a simple idea. Small changes don't stay small. They compound. Just like money earns interest. Just like a river slowly carves through rock. Just like a tiny crack, ignored for years, can eventually bring down an entire wall. Habits are doing the same thing. Every day. Whether you notice them or not. That's why this book was never really about habits. It was about direction. Imagine two airplanes leaving the same airport. One changes its course by only a few degrees. For the first hour, they look almost identical. The passengers wouldn't notice. Neither would the pilots. But after enough time, they arrive on different continents. Habits work like that. The changes feel too small to matter. Until one day, you look back and realize you're living in a completely different life. Now think back to David. He wasn't saved by motivation. Think about Sarah. She didn't become a reader because she suddenly developed incredible self-control. Think about James. He didn't change because he trained harder. Think about Amina. She changed because one missed day no longer became a missed month. Think about Ollie. He didn't discover more hours. He stopped giving them away. Different people. Different lives. One pattern. They stopped asking, how can I become more disciplined? And started asking, what kind of system is creating the life I'm already living? Maybe that's the question you've been avoiding too. Because if your current systems stay exactly as they are, where will they take you? 1 year from now? 5 years from now? Who will you become? If nothing changes, not because of one big decision, but because of the thousands of tiny ones you repeat without thinking. And maybe that's the most uncomfortable truth of all. Every morning, your habits are casting votes, not just for what you'll do today, but for the person you'll become tomorrow. The good news is that votes can change. You don't need to rewrite your entire life tonight. You don't need a perfect plan. You don't need more motivation. You need one decision, one small action, repeated long enough that it becomes part of who you are. Because you never rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. And if there's one idea worth taking from Atomic Habits, it's this: your future is already being written, quietly, by the things you do when you think they don't matter. So before you chase another goal, before you wait for Monday, before you promise yourself that next month will be different, look around. Your room, your desk, your phone, your routines. Ask yourself one question: is my environment creating the person I want to become, or the person I'm slowly becoming by default? Because in the end, your life isn't built by the decisions you make once. It's built by the decisions your systems make for you every single day.